Today, I want to go over 8 movies. Colors, American Me, Menace to Society, Boys in the Hood, Training Day, Baby Boy, Scarface, and Warriors. Number 1 would be, on my list would be Colors. Colors is made up of many colors, but we want to talk about 2 colors, red and blue. I like the first beginning of the movie when the guys that's gangbanging, they went into something like 4800, which is called the module. And they throwing up their signs, and they are actually throwing up signs, and they are just introducing each other through hand signs. They don't really have to talk. That's one thing about hand signs. The people that's deaf, they use hand signs to talk, and that's what a lot of gang members do, to talk about the sets and the signs they throw up through sign language. When I was in the USP, when I was in the PN, they used a lot of sign language in the hole, or when you're in across from each other on lockdown, you throw up sign language. That way people can know what you want or what you want to do inside of the lockdown. 2 is American Me. I really like American Me because actually what American Me means is, American Me means that this is my country. This is what the movie was about, because if you move the borders from United States or from California, you would have Mexico. That's why I say American Me. If you take off American, it just be me, because we mean Mexico. That's why it's talk about American Me, because if you look at the gangs in Los Angeles, you got the F-13s, which is a big gang. You have the 18 streets, you have the 38 streets, and you have the MS-13s. And those, and then I ran into some other guys that was from Harpies. They was from Harpies, I think that's on the west side. But I have actually ran into a lot of gangs in Los Angeles that's really kind of like, they real populated in Los Angeles, because this was Mexico before. That's why the movie was about Americans, me in America. That means me in America, that means that's us, our country. So that's what I got out of American Me. Now, Menace to Society is about 2 menaces. You have one menace is you, then the other menace is the police. Because if you're number 1, then they are number 2, because when they come arrest you, you turn your guns over to them, so you couldn't be a menace, because they're the biggest menace. You just a little menace. And Boys in the Hood, I like the Boys in the Hood because when you talk about Boys in the Hood, you remember the song Boys the Men? Boys in the Hood mean that as we was younger guys, we joined these gangs because we was boys. When do men become men in America? It's no process. So when you look at the movie Boys in the Hood, that actually means we was boys. And a lot of times we went to juvenile youth authority or YATS, Scott, Scudder, all of those, because we were boys. And then as we became men after 25, because now in youth, in the YA in California, you can stand youth authority till you 25. That's why now they couldn't give a life sentence to boys that mind is not developed all the way, and they had murders. They was charged as juvenile lifers because they are still boys. And that's a big court case in the Supreme Court called the Graham case, where a lot of guys should be getting out right now, because you can't give a guy life without, that's a boy. And that's what I got off Boys in the Hood, because they did a lot of boy things, and it was on that. Now, the third one, the other one would be Training Day. I had an opportunity to meet some guys that was in Training Day, Fat Rat, Bob, and a few of the, I haven't never met Bone, but I know he was in the movie. But I see how the Training Day was built on the backs of gang members. I see a lot of movies, man, they using our culture, they taking our livelihood, because those movies need to be done by gang members or guys that have woke up in society in Los Angeles, because everybody making money off the culture. They are called culture vultures. Damon Dash had a movie called Culture Vultures, because if you look at Vance Jones ain't never been in jail a day in his life. And Vance Jones they gave Vance Jones $100 million. I'm not sure if it was Nike or the guy that Bezos. And they gave him $100 million for prison reform. But guess what? Vance Jones haven't been in jail one time. Vance Jones used to work for Obama in the Obama administration. Now, then we have Baby Boy. You see all of these movies come back to the boy, because we know that the average black man in America don't know the process of being a man, because in Africa, we became men when we got circumcised at 13. We will be in a hut with 40 or 50 guys at 13, and they would circumcise you with the knife with no anesthesia. Now, a bar mitzvah is when a Jewish kid become a religious kid, become 13. He got to quote certain things out of the Torah, which is they become men at 13. Women become women at certain age when they start having menstruation or being a baby. But it's no process in America, because Nelson Mandela says that process has been stripped away from us in America, because we get circumcised when we pretty much born or right after we're born. So that means that we haven't went through any pain. Can you just imagine being in a hut with 25 guys with no anesthesia? Everybody is in pain with a hot knife. That would bring on the thing we call manhood. And then we would go out and hunt. That was on Baby Boy. Now, Scarface, I like the Scarface because Scarface actually shows you how to run a corporation. If you take out the violence of Scarface, those companies, that was a company that the guy that they made that movie after, he owned some of Coca-Cola in Florida. He was actually a smart Cuban guy that came over here from the Medellin boat. And now they can't send the guys that came over here on the Medellin boat back, because Castro, they say, will kill him. Now, if you came over here on the Medellin boat, that means you came over here political asylum, where you can't go back. But you have people in the United States, they came over here on scholarships, but they got to go back because they didn't come over here on political asylum. Now, Florida have a bunch of immigrants, but when you look at Little Havana only had 20,000 businesses one time. Now they got 100,000. So immigration is good for this country, because those 100,000 businesses is paying taxes on their businesses in Little Havana. That's why a lot of people don't understand the process that they did with the United States. It's all about the tax dollars. Now, the last one would be on this list would be the Warriors. Have you ever heard of the movie King of New York? That's all the Warriors is. It's a remake of the Kings of New York. Now, the Kings of New York, or the Gangs of New York, I think it was called the Gangs of New York, or the Kings, one of them was called the Gangs of New York. They all started off back in the late 20s or 40s or 50s, where they was like unionized gangs, and some of them turned political and some of them didn't. But when I watched that movie, they was all like butchers, and they was all like trying to run New York, but New York was kind of like was made up of a bunch of immigrants. And now with Warriors is just like a gang trying to get through the city, and they link up and everything. But do you know one of the biggest things in society is? Do you know why Whitey Bulger hid in Los Angeles for 30 years? A lot of people don't understand that. Whitey Bulger hid in Los Angeles for 30 years because the mafia never was set up inside of Los Angeles. They was everywhere else but except Los Angeles. Now, if Whitey Bulger hid in Los Angeles for 30 years, he hid there because they knew that they wouldn't look for him in Los Angeles because the mafia never been there. The mafia never set up in Los Angeles is because of the LAPD, or the sheriff department. Those police were so corrupt that they know how to handle mafia figures. That's why the gang members in LA had to move out of LA all over the country because the LAPD, and LAPD is the biggest gang, but at the same time, they can stop gangs if they want to. They stop the mafia from coming to LA. Why they can't stop these little gangs that they made in LA? Because they don't want to stop them because it's so profitable, because the state prison was built off of Los Angeles gangs.